What's going on? It's your guy Double D Derek, dimesdefeatthebook.com. A little bit of action here early for you this morning. This is the morning show. Want to try to do something a little bit different here, hop on here a little bit more consistently, give you some takes here with March Madness right around the corner, starting up tomorrow. Selection Sunday was yesterday. A lot of surprises, some things not so eventful, but I want to give you a little bit of information here pertaining to March Madness. If you're new, guys, welcome. I thank you for tuning in. If you've been here before, welcome back. Let's give you my takes here on March Madness, right? So every day will be a little bit different. About time. You're right. It is about time. Just been a lot since moving. We moved to a new home, new build here. So trying to settle and get things up. As you can see, I don't even have the backdrop up. I don't have any pictures up. But want to try to get in here and get some things going for you guys. All right. So typically the show will be a little bit earlier. It's a little bit later here today. Had some issues trying to get the mic set up, and it is what it is. But want to try to give you guys some takes here. So March Madness is up and these brackets are nuts. And if I have to be real and honest with you guys, I think the East, in my opinion, is by far the toughest region moving into this tournament. They're going to roll in UConn, FAU, San Diego State, all three teams that were in the Final Four just 1 year ago. So completely stacked division. And we didn't even get to talk about Auburn, who's been playing fantastic basketball. I honestly think that this is the best team that coach has had since he's been in Auburn here. This team is loaded and very, very dangerous as we see their SEC champions this year. And what was a pretty tough SEC team. And then we see BYU, who's had some knocked off some great teams there in the Big 12. Big 12 being, I believe, the most difficult conference in college basketball here this season. And then you roll into Illinois. Washington State's not bad. Drake is a very, very good team coming out the Missouri Valley Conference there. And then we see Iowa State, right? So just completely jam-packed in my opinion. I think the East is by far the most difficult thing. So coming into tournament time here, what are some things to look out for? What are some trends? What are some spots that you would like to see, or some guys you would like to back, or some spots you'd like to see? So typically history tells us that 12-5 matchups, everybody loves a 12-5 matchup, and it seems to be trending in that direction once again here this year as everybody is on the 12 seeds. It seems I'm just looking at some of the splits here already. Only 1 day since the brackets have been out, not even 24 hours, and it seems like a ton of money is on almost all the 12 seeds. UAB, a lot of money in on UAB going up against San Diego State, a team who made it all the way to the championship last year. Obviously, they lost a couple of guys, but still a team that is extremely dangerous and a team that's veteran laden, and then a team that you should watch out for. But a lot of money rolling in on UAB. And then you go down to the West in that 12-5 matchup. We're seeing here, as I'm trying to see my screen, I'm slacking here a little bit. There we go. Grand Canyon. A lot of folks are on Grand Canyon going up against St. Mary's. Not sure if that's a smart idea there. Randy Bennett's someone that I truly have a lot of confidence in, but there's a lot of money rolling in on Grand Canyon. And then you go over to the Midwest, McNeese State. A lot of folks are doubting Gonzaga. Now, we've seen some issues with Gonzaga all year long, especially pertaining to their defense. We know offensively they can fill it up with the best of them, but defensively they've had some issues in and out, and were knocked off there by St. Mary's, who was a very good basketball team of their own as well. But a lot of folks not backing Gonzaga there in the 12-5 matchup. McNeese State has Coach Wade over there, came over from LSU, so a very well coached team. I'm not sure that he has all his guys there yet. They come from a conference that's not very competitive. So 30-3 record looks very good, but the schedule was very, very weak. So I'm not sure that I back McNeese State. 12-5 matchup here in the South. We're taking a look at James Madison and Wisconsin, which in my opinion is probably the best 12 seed here in this tournament. James Madison has a lot of veteran experience on this team. We saw them go up against Michigan State and how well they played against Michigan State there. But this Wisconsin team is coming to the tournament about as hot as you can possibly get here for Wisconsin. Made it all the way to the Big Ten championship. And I'm not sure any of us expected that. Basically, watching how poorly they played coming into the tournament, they were one of the worst teams coming into the Big Ten, and then they got hot at the right time. Guys started making plays. We see a resurgence from Chucky Hepburn, who really hadn't played a lot of great basketball here this season. I thought he kind of took a back seat, but we saw him take a step forward. Klesmit stepped up, and obviously AJ Storr has been a great transfer addition for Wisconsin as well. So that 12-5 matchup to me, I believe, is the most interesting and intriguing matchup is James Madison and Wisconsin, but I'm not sure that I'm really willing to get there yet. So there's going to be some games that pop up tomorrow. Obviously, those those playing games will be in action with Boise State, Colorado, Montana State, and Grambling. And then there's also the Howard, Wagner, Virginia, Colorado State. So a lot of basketball to be played yet. 10 seeds or playing games do start tomorrow as we have the first four that basically were the first four playing games or whatever. So that'll be going on tomorrow. So yeah, very interesting things that you should know moving into March Madness. Now, if you guys have been following with me, I've been letting you know I've been on Sports Rage a little bit. Shout out to Gabriel Morency. He's really looked out, allowed me to be on his show quite a couple times there. So yeah, last time we were on, we talked about college basketball, college hoops, and how surprising it was that if you looked up the numbers, that the Pac-12 has really been struggling as well as the Big Ten. And obviously, I'm a Big Ten guy. So with Big Ten basketball, we love Zach Edey, we love Tom Izzo, but Big Ten basketball, honestly, if you're looking into it, this is my personal opinion, I don't think the guard play is up to standard with some of these other teams. Right. So we're coming in to these Big Ten teams. We see in a lot of low scoring games, 65 to 55. And really the teams that can really fill it up are the teams that have had great success in the Big Ten. So as we see in Wisconsin have the resurgence because they were able to score 70 some, 80 some points the last few games. We saw Illinois be able to get the job done there in the Big Ten. They were scoring over 90 some points in the Big Ten conference. They were playing outstanding offensive basketball, where a lot of these Big Ten teams have a lot of great big men, but not really outstanding guard play in my opinion. And I think something moving forward in March Madness, you got to be able to have guards. Obviously, bigs are important, but you got to be able to have guards. This is a guard-dominated game here, whether it's NBA, whether it's college basketball. You got to be able to have some guards, right? So I think it's important guard play coming into it. We've seen it even in years past with Villanova. They typically have the four guard system when they had Jay Wright at the helm. That's a team who just missed out on the tournament here this year. And that's another thing that I want to hit on here. Strength of schedule has become an important factor. Out of those top 25 teams with the strength of schedule, almost every single one, I think there's only a couple that didn't make it in, right? So obviously Purdue, Houston, Alabama, Marquette, Connecticut, Baylor, Tennessee, Iowa State, Wisconsin, Kansas, Arizona, Illinois, Michigan State, all in the tournament, right? All these teams are in and have extremely difficult strength of schedule. One of the only ones who didn't get in is Villanova. Didn't get in there at the 19 spot. Oklahoma didn't get in at number 22, and Xavier did not get in at 23, and St. John's at 25. Now, Xavier's one of those teams who had a lot of injuries early in their season. They lost Fremantle, which was expected to be a key part of their team here this year. So losing Fremantle completely changed the trajectory, I believe, of the Xavier team, who was otherwise very dangerous, very young. That's a team that I think everyone should watch out for next year. When they get their two key players back, they're going to be a totally different year moving into another season with Sean Miller at the helm for Xavier. So when it comes down to it, out of the top 25, we only had four teams that had the toughest schedule, top 25 toughest schedule in the country, that did not make the tournament. So it is important that you stack your schedule. It's important that you get those quad one wins, or that you have the opportunity to get quad one wins if you want to get into March Madness. Now, there's been a lot of talk this year about expanding the pool. I'm not someone who typically backs that. I think it's at a great number. I think 66, 67, 68 is a big enough number. I know there's been talks about going to 72, 74. I think we're starting to get into, obviously it's a money grab. They're trying to get more teams, more TV time, more colleges in. But I think the 68 is a perfect number. I like the playing games that they've added in, and those 10 spots, 11 spots to get teams in. But I think the pool is set, in my opinion, at 68. I think it's a great number. Now, if we're going to talk future bets here, something you have to, like I was saying earlier, something you have to take into account here is the Pac-12 has not won a national title since 1997. So 1997 is the last time. That was Arizona. Shout out to Damon Stoudemire, who's now head coach there in the ACC. That's the last time that they won a national title. The Big Ten, the last time they won a national title was the year 2000. I believe that was Mateen Cleaves and Mo Pete and those guys with Tom Izzo. So quite a long time since Michigan State and the Big Ten in general has won a national title. So we see year after year teams like Purdue that have Zach Edey. And once again, we saw them struggle with the guard play last year. They played a team like Fairleigh Dickinson and had a really tough time, their guards knocking down shots and handling the pressure. As tournament time, you're going to see the game slow down. You're going to see the defensive pressure ratchet up. You got to be able to make tough shots, and you got to be able to win away from home. And then now the Big East has really run the roost, as has the ACC, have really been the top dogs since the 20th century has turned over. As the ACC, I believe, has had 9 national titles, and the Big East has had 9 national titles as well. And we even see the Big 12 grabbed a couple there. They have 2, and the SEC has 4. Most of that has been done by Florida, had the back-to-back wins there earlier in the 2000s when they had Billy Donovan at the helm, and Kentucky has a couple wins, obviously, with Coach Cal at the helm there. They got a couple national titles with some of the great teams that he's had. So it's really, as much as we say, it's open and anybody can win it, really not anybody can win it. And not really, this seems to be the same teams typically who've been getting it done. Mainly Connecticut has a ton of titles here since the 2000s, with Dan Hurley grabbing his first one there last year. The Big 12, Scott Drew's done a really nice job there at Baylor, getting the job done. Obviously, Kansas with Bill Self has done a tremendous job there in the Big 12. In the ACC, we've seen Tony Bennett with Virginia. The year after Virginia gets knocked out in the first round, they come back the following year, 2019, and get their national title, their first one for Tony Bennett and Virginia. And then obviously the blue bloods, we know Duke and North Carolina, which everybody loves to select, has been right there grabbing national titles now. It's been since 2019, since the ACC has won one, 2012 for the SEC. So something to keep in mind here if you're thinking about backing a team from one of those conferences. It's been some time. So in my opinion, it would take a lot for me to pick a team from the Pac-12 to win a national title. It would take an extraordinary effort for me to have to back someone from the Big Ten here to win a national title. I just don't see it happening. If there was one, I don't think it would be Purdue. In my opinion, I think Illinois has the best chance to make it from the Big Ten. But in my opinion, I think that they're in the toughest region. As I said, once again, they're going to have to run through Morehead State, a team they should beat, and then they'll probably be matched up with BYU or Duquesne. Duquesne actually looked really good in their matchup there against VCU, a game I had some action on. Extremely great defensive team. Offensively, they really struggle, but they knock down enough shots to get it done there in the second half. There's a very tough VCU team. So they would have to go through there and then possibly Drake or Washington State or Iowa State. Iowa State would be a tough one there for Illinois. But Illinois has the offensive firepower to knock off anybody. But for them to try to win a natty, they'd have to go through UConn or FAU or San Diego State or Auburn. I mean, that East region has been it's just nuts. It's just absolutely nuts. I honestly think whoever comes out of that Eastern region is going to be the national champion, barring injury. Obviously, injuries can happen and things can happen. But I think the East region to me is the toughest region by far if I had to select one. The team that I think is most vulnerable, I think, would be the West. I think Baylor's a team to watch for there in the West, sitting in that 3 spot. I know Arizona's at a 2 spot. They have Caleb Love as one of their main guys. I think we saw some of the volatility with an Arizona Wildcats team with Caleb Love at the helm. He's a guy I really like, can shoot it really well. But I feel like he gets very streaky. We've seen him really struggle there in the Pac-12 tournament, and they ended up getting knocked off. The games that they struggle to win are the games where he does not play well. He shoots a lot of threes and typically makes a lot of threes, but he goes through spells where he's 1 for 7, 1 for 8, 1 for 5 from 3. And it makes it very difficult for them to win because he's not someone who typically likes to get downhill and get to the rack and get to the free throw line. He wants to shoot the threes, and sometimes they're deep threes. And when he makes them, you love him. When he doesn't, you tend to have some questions about his shot selection. But they're a team that I think is extremely talented, but I'm not sure they have the leadership to be able to pull through there. But I really like the spot that Baylor's in. They would have to face a Clemson team who I think is very beatable with the way that Baylor's been playing and the experience that Scott Drew has now, remembering that he's already has a national title under his wing there. And at worst, they would have to face a North Carolina, I believe, or Alabama team who we know doesn't play very much defense. They're an outstanding offensive team, but has struggled as very well on the defensive side. Excuse me. So a lot of teams to watch out for there in that bracket. But I think Baylor, in my opinion, is someone to watch there in the Western region moving forward. Now, getting back into some trends here. I know we're running through this rather quickly, but it's going to be about a 20-minute segment or so. We'll see if we get some eyes on it. We'll see if people care for it or not, but we're going to try to continue to move forward here. So now the last 3 years in the tournament, a 15 seed has won and a 15 seed has made it to the Sweet 16. So that's 3 years consecutively in a row. We've seen a 15 seed knock off a 2 seed and make it all the way to the Sweet 16. Do we think it's going to happen here this year? I do not think that it's going to happen here this year. 15 seeds or South Dakota State has a ridiculously tough matchup with Iowa State right ahead. Now, Long Beach State is a team that I think we have to watch out for here. Going up against Arizona in the first round, coach really doesn't have much to lose. I'm not sure if you guys were keeping up on that headline where Long Beach State head coach was told before the tournament that he was going to be relieved of his duties. So he was going to be fired. So it just so happens he goes on to win their conference tournament there, and Long Beach State gets the automatic bid. So interesting to see his team let it all hang out and try to give it one last hurrah for their coach, who looks like he's going to be looking for a job here. He should get some offers moving forward. But I think he's ready for a clean slate there. Now, another 15-2 matchup, Marquette and Western Kentucky. I'd be stunned to see Marquette lose this one. They're possibly been going to get their two best players back. Kolick has been out for quite some time. I think he had an oblique injury. Sean Jones, I believe, is expected to come back too. Both those guys are key pieces to what Marquette does. And all that they've done without those two key players is make it to the Big East Championship, which was a game. It was very much a game with about 7 minutes to go or so. And then UConn does what UConn does. If you're not familiar with UConn, um, they're just outstanding. 50, they're one of those teams that I believe it's called, they've been tracking what they call kill shots now, which is a 12-0 run. Teams who go on 12-0 runs the most consistent basis from game to game. UConn does it more than anyone does it. When UConn goes on runs, they go on runs. I believe that Marquette game was a 2-point, 3-point game, and then Michigan or UConn only made, I think, 7 threes in that game, or 7 or 8 threes, and it seemed to be consecutively all in a row during that run. They scored like 20. It was like a 20-5 run, and then what once was a game at about the 7-minute mark turned into an absolute blowout in the Big East Championship. And that's the ability that UConn has now with the addition of Cam Spencer coming over there from Rutgers. He's been nuts. Caravan, Clinigan. This team just has so many guys who can score it in a variety of different ways, especially from 3-point range. They can play fast, they can play slow. I mean, once again, they are the champions until they are dethroned. And Danny Hurley now has figured out how to get himself a national title, and what it takes to get his team back to the promised land. And obviously they're favorites, and for good reason. And it's hard not to back them moving forward. But yeah, Marquette is going to get their players back. I don't see them losing to Western Kentucky. And then we see Tennessee going up against St. Peter's there in the 15-2 spot matchup in the Midwest. Now, Tennessee is a team I really like as well. Dalton Connect, I believe, is just too outstanding of a player for his team to get knocked off there in the first round. Really helps them out offensively, as typically Tennessee's one of those teams who goes on droughts, where they have a hard time scoring the basketball for quite some time, and they're struggling to knock things down. Well, now they have Dalton Connect come over, who should be, in my opinion, a lottery pick with his skill set, 6'7" frame, can shoot it, could dribbles it good enough, could post up, rebound the ball well. They kind of throw it to him and let him go and score baskets when they get into some of those routes. So I think that they should be okay there. But yeah, Long Beach State, in my opinion, is a team to watch out for at the 15 spot. All the other ones I think would be tough for a 15 seed to come out, as we're coming off a year. As I said, 3 straight years a 15 seed has won and advanced to the Sweet 16. I think this year that ends. Now, it's been 15 straight years that a double-digit seed has advanced, right? 36 of the last 38. Since 2011, 14 11 seeds have made it to the Sweet 16. So out of the double-digit seeds that have made it to the Sweet 16 since 2011, 14 of them have been the 11 seed. So something to look into moving forward in that 11, 12. I know a lot of people like the 12 seeds, but 11 has been the number here since 2011 that has made it to the Sweet 16, right? So there's been a lot going on here with college basketball pertaining to that, pertaining to the conferences. I believe the ESPN put something out about from conference to conference, right? So we have the ACC's had at least one team reach the Elite Eight in 34 of the last 38 tournaments. So ACC, as we said, there's as much as we say things are wide open, is as much as they stay the same. ACC, the Big East, and the Big 12 are consistently going to have teams in that Elite Eight. They're going to consistently have teams in the Sweet 16 year after year after year. As I said, ACC's had at least one team reach the Elite Eight in 34 of the last 38 March Madness tournaments. They've had at least one team in the Final Four 26 of the last 28, and they've had at least one team in the title game 18 of the last 36 games. These are eye-popping stats here, right? So ACC to me, it's one of those creme de la creme conferences where if they make it through, they get into the tournament, they typically do very, very well. So ACC teams, something that you have to keep when you're filling out your bracket, something that you have to keep in mind, right? The Big 12 has had teams reach the title game in 3 of the last 4 seasons, with Baylor winning in 2001, Kansas winning in 2002. They're typically 21-5 in the last 4 tournaments in the first round. So once again, we talked about as much as things have changed, is as much as things have stayed the same. The same big dogs have been doing what big dogs do, and that's eat. Hungry dogs going to eat. They're going to get the job done every single time. Big East, Big 12, ACC is going to run the roost when it comes to March Madness time. So yeah, 21-5 in the first round of the tournament, the best percentage of any conference. All right. Now we see the Big Ten, as I already have stated before, has not won a title since 2000. That was Tom Izzo's team. I believe that was Mateen Cleaves. I believe that was Mo Pete on that team. That's the last time. So obviously filling out your brackets, in my opinion, if there was a team to pick in the Big Ten to win it all, I would pick Illinois, although they are in the toughest region. I don't have a ton of faith in Purdue. I don't think the guards are good enough. I don't think that they have a guy outside of Edey that you can just throw it to and get a basket. We know Illinois is going to have Terrence Shannon, who has been outstanding. I believe he averaged 30 plus points there in the Big Ten tournament. So he's somebody we know is going to get that job done. If they get into tough times, he can attack the basket and get layups. He can shoot the mid range. He can finish with his right. He can finish with his left. He can hit the 3 ball. He's somebody who's extremely dynamic, and it seems like on a week to week and game to game basis, he's improving his draft stock. So that's a team that I think out of the Big Ten, if I was to pick a team from the Big Ten, would be it would be Illinois to move forward and possibly have a chance to win it all there. So as we stated before, Big Ten has not won a title since 2000. Now, the CAA, which is the Coastal Athletic Conference here, they have not won a first round game since VCU. VCU has been out of that conference, and now they are in the Atlantic 10. They got knocked out by we just talked about them. Oh, Duquesne. Duquesne knocked them out there in the Atlantic 10 conference. So the CAA, obviously a team who's really looking for their first win here since 2012, right? Mountain West has got past the Sweet 16 last year, but that was the first time in quite some time. San Diego State was the first Mountain West team to make it past the Sweet 16. So obviously in the Mountain West, that would be the team to me. If you were looking for a team in the Mountain West to try to advance forward, keep an eye on Colorado State. Their offense is very potent. There's been some very good teams in the Mountain West this season. I really like what I've seen from Nevada as well. I like what I've seen from Colorado as well. But obviously, I think that San Diego State is the team that runs the roost there over in the Mountain West Conference. Okay, but yeah, so last year was the first year a Mountain West team advanced past the Sweet 16 with San Diego State making it to the championship game. But in the last 7 tournaments here, Mountain West teams are 2-12 in the first round. So Mountain West teams 2-12 in the first round of the past 7 tournaments. Now these are just trends. All right, these are not these are not the holy grail of anything. You take everything with a cloud of dust. And a grain of salt, whether you're deciding to take this into your consideration with your bracket. It's your choice. Obviously, it's wide open. Anybody can win it. As they say, anybody can win it. But yeah, this is just information I'm spewing out to you here, right? So moving on, as we said before, the Pac-12, it has been 27 years since there's been a national champion in the Pac-12. Obviously, with Arizona sitting at a 2 seed this year, they're really the ones holding it down for the Pac-12. Last time that they had a team in the national championship was 2006, and just 2 Pac-12 teams in the past 15 years have reached the Final Four. Can Arizona break the mold? Can they get there? I think if there's a team to do it, it's Arizona. But I'm not absolutely sold on them. They have the talent to do it. They just have been very inconsistent. They're a team that's very difficult for me to trust on a game-to-game basis. Now, since 2016, the SEC's had 0 teams that were ranked in the top 4 make it to the Final Four. So this year, we see Tennessee's a 2 seed. We see Kentucky is a 3 seed. We see Auburn at 4, and we see Alabama at 4. Since 2016, none of those teams that were a 4 seed or higher have made it to the Final Four. Now, I'm not sure if that will stick here this year. I really feel really good about this Auburn team. The problem with this Auburn team is for them to make it, they're going to have to go through UConn, and that's just a freight train of a team right now. I think they're just it's hard for them to not be the favorite to win it all. But I really like Alabama or really like Auburn. Alabama obviously can score with the best of them based on the matchup that they get. But yeah, it's going to be tough for the SEC. I think once again to advance this year, Tennessee will have a solid chance if they can continue to score the ball at a high clip. The SoCon Conference, the Southern Conference, is looking for a win in the tournament for consecutive years. So this will be the second year. If they get a win, it will be just the second time that they've won a win back to back. They've had wins in consecutive years for the first time in 47 years. Last year, Furman got a win there as a 13 seed going up against Virginia in the first round. And this year we see Sanford at a 13 seed going up against Kansas. Now, I don't think that Kansas will lose that game. I do believe that Kansas is a team that you kind of have to watch out for. I don't love the addition of Hunter Dickinson. I think his play style really hinders what Bill Self likes to do. He typically has two forwards who can run and jump and cover and switch everything, which makes them so much more dangerous defensively. Offensively, Hunter Dickinson makes them a great team. He can shoot the three. He can post up back to the basket. He's a 20 and 10 guy typically, but he's just so slow. He gets caught in a pick and roll if they get switched off. That's the dogs are getting hungry. They're licking their chops, getting that matchup on the perimeter with a guy with slow feet like Hunter Dickinson, who is a Big Ten player. He comes over from a Michigan team who just was abysmal this year. How about Juwan Howard getting fired there? Somebody I think is a big name that is not really good at coaching. I actually think they played better under Phil Martelli, but that's for another time. So yeah, the SoCon Conference looking for back-to-back wins for the first time in a very, very long time. I'm not sure they're going to be able to get it done here this year. And the Sun Belt has done a very nice job. The past 3 seasons, the Sun Belt Conference has earned a 12 seed, and they've won. They've won their games. So we'll see if they're going to be able to get it done. James Madison obviously is the 12 seed here this year, going up against Wisconsin. Um, I really like James Madison. I wish they had a different matchup. But yeah, I think that Wisconsin is so hot right now. Would it be shocked for them to lose? I wouldn't be shocked, but it's difficult for me to see it happening. I think that this team is back into the form that they were earlier in the season when they looked like they were going to be a top four team here in the tournament before they hit midway through January, February. They started really struggling to get things done on the road. And now it seems that they've turned the corner here. So a lot of these are neutral site games. And a lot of these too, you have to pay attention to where some of these games are located. So for the first couple rounds, UConn is playing. They're going to be basically in Brooklyn, which is a stone throw away from the Garden, which is basically a home game for UConn, right? So those first couple rounds, UConn I expect to take care of business like they always do, and that crowd is going to travel. So paying attention to where these games are located, paying attention to the matchup, paying attention to the injury report, are all things that we have to do, as well as just history and what history tells us. I'm also a firm believer in the coaching, with depending on who it is and how they've historically done. Obviously, we sing Izzo's praises as last year they got to the Sweet 16. It's a team that has really been up and down. With their play here this year is a guy that you want to watch out for. The Big East and Dan Hurley, Shaka Smart over there at Marquette is typically a coach who gets things done for you there. And I think there's still a lot to be proved with two newer coaches there over in UConn or North Carolina and Duke. They've done a solid job here, but now they have to kind of prove themselves until they get a natty. I think there's still going to be some questions about both of those coaches there over in North Carolina and Duke. But yeah, guys, that's all I wanted to show to you here. Rounding it out to about 30 minutes. Make sure you thumbs up. Make sure you like it. You subscribe to the channel. I'm going to try to give you more intel. It won't be so much just factual based like this. It'll be a little bit more give and take here typically, but wanted to make sure I gave you guys some trends with the games kicking off tomorrow, some important information. You could find it over at ESPN. Teamrankings.com is some of the places I pulled some of this information from. OddsShark, I pulled some information from there as well. As obviously this isn't all coming off the top of the dome here, but wanted to make sure I came here, gave you guys some intel, gave you guys some trends, gave you guys my thoughts on what we had coming forward here My personal pick before we wrap things up to try to win it all here. I think there's a couple teams that I really like. Houston was one of those teams, and although they got the brakes beat off of them, I still like them to go far in this tournament. Obviously, it's hard to turn your back on UConn moving forward as well. And as a dark horse, I would say either Marquette or Creighton have a decent chance to come out of there as well. They're 2,500 odds as my son comes kicking in the door here. All right, but but it's Double D. You want to come say hi, Duty? We'll get him on here. Come on. It's Double D, Derek Dimes, and my son here. Defeatthebook.com, guys. Let us help you beat the odds. Thanks for tuning in. Make sure, stop. Make sure you thumbs up the channel. Let me know if you like it. Yeah, you love them. I love you. Okay. Make sure you let me know what you guys think of the live stream. Okay. Double D, Derek Dimes. Best of luck if you decide to tail. But either way, hope you guys have an awesome day. Good luck.